Production funding for Ruckus has been provided by gifts from Dave and Jamie Cummings, the Hartwig family, Hush Blackwell, Barbara and Peter Gattermeyer, and by viewers like you. Thank you.
Welcome to Ruckus, where we fight tooth and nail and sometimes tongue-in-cheek over the news of the day and the trends of the times. I'm Mike Shannon. The Ruckettes join me shortly, and our topics this week: the future of KCI up to the voters, a local columnist is concerned about the future of Kansas, and a future campaign in Missouri gets plenty of attention. Plus, of course, roast and toast. But we start with our Newsmaker segment and welcome the president and CEO of the Greater Kansas City Chamber of Commerce. Joe Reardon succeeded Jim Heater in that post about 18 months ago. Prior to that, he served as head of the Area Transportation Authority. Reardon is probably best known for his terms as mayor and CEO of the Unified Government of Kansas City, Kansas, and Wyandotte County. In that role, he continued a family tradition. His father, Jack, also served as mayor of Kansas City, Kansas. So let's catch up on the chamber and welcome Joe Reardon back to Ruckus. Mr. Mayor, it is good to see you again. Thanks for coming in.
It's good being with you.
I know you're very active out working for a yes vote on KCI November the 7th. Let me start with that. Editorial from the Kansas City Star last Sunday about the airport. Here is one sentence from it. We'll put it on the screen so viewers can see it. And I quote, "KCI is a perpetual impediment in everything Kansas City aspires to achieve." Do you accept that? Is KCI, a new airport, that consequential?
I think it is that consequential. It's the front door to our city, and there's so much great going on in this entire region, all over the region. And I think the first impression we're giving to someone that's coming new to our city sends all the wrong messages, quite frankly. And first impressions matter, and the functionality of an airport and what's expected in that for a world-class city matters as well. And so for us to attract business, for us to attract new people, I think that port into Kansas City, which it really is, it's the entryway for most people that come to our city, is fundamentally important to sustaining our quality of life and growing our great region as well.
Well, you know, one area I think people get confused about is there will be fewer gates, but the promise of more flights. But that promise has not come from the airlines, as I understand it.
Right.
What do you say about that?
So, importantly, Southwest has said they're throttling back flights at KCI today because of the way that the terminal operates. They're getting a lot of complaints, and it's hard to transfer passengers from one gate to another. They're moving all that transfer activity, or a lot of it, to St. Louis, our near neighbor, and they're getting more flights, not because there's more people in St. Louis flying, but because they can transfer them there better. So all the airlines have said a new single terminal format is what they believe is important for them to be able to serve the traveling public here in the best way. And to give you a sense of what capacity means in design, Dallas Love Field, which is about the size of what would be built here in Kansas City, has 18 gates, only 18, and they fly 180 daily flights out of those 18 gates. 35 gates properly configured would give us an immense amount of increased capacity and would allow us to be competitive to attract those connecting flights. Today we're not competitive and we're losing flights because of it.
Is it fair to say the airlines are putting this point of view forward? We can't add more unless or until you do something about changing KCI.
I think that's probably a fair way to say it. I think that's a fair way to say it, and we know there's an opportunity to go after more if we've got an airport that can compete with others, period.
I was talking to one of the area's elected officials the other day who is very supportive of the idea of a new airport, and he said it's going to be 55-45, 55 yes, 45% no. What's your assessment? What's your prediction, or do you have one?
I don't know if I have a prediction, but I can tell you this, because we've been doing presentations since May, and there is momentum to move forward with a single terminal. I absolutely believe that. And I think it's because this is the kind of election and campaign that requires a conversation. Everyone knows this airport. They have an opinion, and they want to learn more about it. And I think the more you learn about the opportunities at KCI with a new single terminal, the more you become a proponent of it. So that's why we, as the Chamber, with the KCADC and the Civic Council, have been out engaging people wherever we can find them, and businesses have helped us open the doors. We've been doing lunch and learns all over Kansas City with employees to give them a sense of this.
And there's a huge amount of talk about Amazon looking for a second headquarters location in Kansas City, wanting to be the company that gets that new headquarters. And you've said, I believe, that you can't have one without the other. You can't have Amazon, and we don't know that we'll get Amazon, but we won't have a chance without a new KCI.
Yeah, look, I don't think Amazon's an anomaly. I think Amazon's signaling exactly what companies are looking for when they're looking to relocate or locate. And that is not necessarily the tax incentives. Those are all there. Everyone's going to do that across the country. But there's certain minimum requirements. 45 minutes to an international airport. Mass transit located to the site of their workforce. Those are fundamental building blocks that are important not just for the Amazon attraction, but for Kansas City going forward for us to be competitive. So it's a good signal to us about what we need to be thinking about to grow our economy. When we say grow our economy, those are net new jobs. That's what absolutely runs and makes the region thrive and gives all of us an opportunity in Kansas City to have great quality of life.
We will see what happens on November 7th.
Absolutely.
Mr. Mayor, thank you so much.
Thank you very much,
Great to see you again.
It's great
Thanks
being
for coming
with you.
in. That is Joe Reardon, the President and CEO of the Greater Kansas City Chamber of Commerce. Now let's meet the panel and start a ruckus. Jason Grill is the founder of J Grill Media and a senior advisor at Paris Communications. Denidre Herbert is managing editor at The Sentinel, a conservative website covering Missouri and Kansas news. Terry Riley is a former city councilman and now head of Transformation Consultants. And renowned and influential attorney Steve Marakian is with the law firm of Wersch, Hobbs, and Marakian. Steve, thanks for the notes about how to enhance your introduction. I do appreciate it.
You can expand it a little bit.
I don't have enough, but thanks to all of you for coming in. Sorry that you didn't have quite as fancy an introduction as Mr. Marakian
I wrote
did.
mine.
And he did. He wrote
Write
his.
ours next time.
In about, yes, next time you do your own. In about 3 weeks from now, November the 7th, Kansas City, Missouri voters will decide the fate of a new one-terminal airport designed to replace the 45-year-old current structure. Some wonder when the big advertising push to encourage voters to show up on Election Day and vote yes will intensify. Others think a low-key campaign is just what backers of the plan want. The idea, keep a low profile, don't motivate the opponents, try to suppress their turnout, work hard to quietly motivate those who want the new airport and will vote yes. So is that the plan, or are we about to see a burst of TV ads proclaiming the need for and the virtue of a one terminal KCI? And we start with former city councilman Terry Riley.
First of all, I think that the airport, we need a new airport. Number two, U.S. Airlines, when we built our first airport, U.S. Airlines had a mandatory inspection of passengers and baggage. The Vietnam War was still going on. Governor George Wallace of Alabama was shot.
No, that's not
Watergate
right.
burglars are
Are
arrested.
you saying that's what happened when KCI was built?
No, I'm not. I'm just telling you, times have changed. Kansas City needs to redo its airport, and there is no better option than doing it whereby you do not charge the citizens of Kansas City. This is a good deal for Kansas City, and voters are not being suppressed. I categorically deny those allegations for the individuals running the campaign.
Well, they're not being suppressed by any legal action. I'm just saying the question is, will the campaign be one that is widespread and will get a lot of attention, or is it going to be a low-key campaign?
There has been 150 meetings in neighborhoods across the city.
Aimed at specific supporters.
Yes, aimed at neighborhood groups. There are pros and cons there. And so if you're not there, in which you're not, and you can't say that it's just for the pro side, because there are people that do not support the airport that come to these
All right,
meetings.
the advertising campaign on television has begun. I saw a commercial on Tuesday. Have any of you seen a commercial yet?
I saw the same one. I believe.
And what's your reaction to it?
I didn't like it.
It was Mayor James, wasn't
Yeah,
it?
I think the mayor is very eloquent. I think he's very charismatic. I thought the commercial was bad. I've got a son who's in advertising, and he and I both said the graphics on this and the way it was presented, I thought it looked very amateurish. I did not like it. I hope they're going to run out some really good advertising. Jason would know better than that. He told me last time I was in, get ready, it's coming. This is the first one I've seen. It was very disappointing.
Let me put a sentence on the screen that I asked Joe Reardon about from a Star editorial last Sunday. It said, KCI is a perpetual impediment in everything Kansas City aspires to achieve. So I ask you, Denidre, is that perceptive or hyperbolic?
It's ridiculous. Some of that editorial, if I'm remembering it correctly, said things like, it's just embarrassing when people arrive in Kansas City and the airport is the first thing they see. I mean, how many airports have you been to where you get off the plane and you think, well, I'm not staying here. This airport looks trashy. I mean, the worst airport in America, in my personal opinion, is LaGuardia, known locally as LaGarbage, and I don't see anybody not flying into it because it looks tacky. And for the record, I don't think KCI looks
Terry,
tacky.
is it a perpetual impediment to everything Kansas City aspires to achieve? Does it have anything to do with lowering the homicide rate or improving the water service?
Well, our airport, and if I was able to help the Kansas City Star put something together, I would have talked about it being safer. What Kansas City's airport, and I respect my friend here, but you can just walk in and literally toss something over the glass and run out, and you're gone. It needs to be revamped. And I fly early. 5:30 in the morning. If you go there at 5:30 in the morning and you have not had a meal, you will starve.
Oh, that's not true.
No, you know it's true.
They have those little snack things, and nobody goes to the airport for the restaurants. I mean, I hope not.
No,
If they do,
I
I would like to
get
take them
something to
someplace
eat.
where there's...
Okay, I want to go
I don't
around.
want a junk bar.
I want to go around and get one answer here. I know how you would answer, so I won't ask you. Do you think KCI will get a yes vote and pass?
I can't imagine how it would, because anybody who's ever flown in and out of there as an origination or a destination knows how convenient and simple it is. They're pitching an airport that is going to make flying from here, where people live, more difficult.
No,
Is that a no?
That's a no.
No. Okay, I know you're yes. Right?
Look, and the good thing about this new airport design, ADA requirements, they're going to make sure that we're more ADA compliance. Number two, they want to make it convenient to the citizens of Kansas City. That's the only reason why I was for it before, when Burns and Mac had it. They wanted to make it convenient. This group wants to make it convenient, so therefore it will be convenient and great for Kansas City.
Steve, as an analyst, not an advocate, yes or no, what will the answer be?
Yes.
What will the decision be?
I think the answer will be no. I wish it would be yes. Had it been Burns and Mac and VML, it would have passed overwhelmingly.
All right.
I agree, that would have helped.
The first sentence of Steve Rose's most recent column in the Star says this: why would a smart guy like Greg Orman want to elect villain Chris Kobach governor of Kansas? Rose makes several suppositions. One, that Kobach is a villain. Two, Kobach will be the Republican nominee next year. And three, if Orman runs as an independent, as he did for the Senate in 2014, he will pull votes from the Democratic, not the Republican nominee. Orman has indicated in recent days that he's looking at the gubernatorial sweepstakes. So let's try to deal with Steve's suppositions. Is Kobach a villain and the likely GOP nominee next year? And will Orman hurt the Democrats, not the Republicans? And I will send that simple question to you, Denidre.
Chris Kobach is more Superman than Lex Luthor, first of all. Second, he is the likely nominee. He has a basement of about 25%, and there's, I think, 10 Republican candidates now. So on the Republican side, unless they find dead puppies in his basement, he's probably going to get the nomination. And I actually think Greg Orman would lose in a head-to-head against Chris Kobach, whether or not there's a third candidate. In 2014, Kobach received 508,000 votes in the Kansas Secretary's race, a 2-on-2 race with a known opponent, Gene Schodorf, who was a fairly decent, well-named. And Orman only received 368,000 votes in a head-to-head against Pat Roberts.
Jason, what do we know about Greg Orman?
Well, you know, he's got a lot of money, right? Independent, multimillionaire. He ran in 2014 against Senator Pat Roberts. The Democrats cleared the field for the guy.
Right.
He ran as an independent.
Right.
He lost by 11 points. To your question, Denidre, I think that he might actually take some votes from moderate Republicans if Kobach's the nominee, right?
Enough.
It just depends on who the Democratic nominee. If Josh Schwady gets through there, he's more of a pragmatic, centrist, moderate. Then
He's also pro-life.
he has
you
a
don't
very
find too
similar
many
profile.
pro-life Democrats.
He has a profile similar to Orman's, right? If it's a liberal Democrat and Kobach, I mean, Orman might have a shot to pull from both of the moderate parts of the party and the independents.
Steve, do you have concerns about people running as independents, voters not being really sure what they believe or don't believe, what they stand for?
No, I have no
what
problem
they're
with people
against?
running as independents. I think, particularly in modern times, I quite frankly, though I'm probably still, I haven't checked, a registered Republican, I'm truly an independent. I'm so fed up with both parties. I can't support
Breaking news.
Democrats most of the time, and the Republicans, to me, have betrayed the Republicans like me, conservative, constitutional conservatives, so much that I'm truly an independent, and I would vote for a well-qualified Democrat if I thought that person stood for things that I support. But going back to this issue, in terms of the Kobach
How would
issue,
you know what they support?
well, again, that's the kind of thing you have to see in terms of doing your own research, trying to find things that they've written, things that they've spoken about, watching such things as gubernatorial debates.
Tuning into Ruckus.
And, you know, tuning into Ruckus. It is difficult. I agree with you. However, I don't think Orman is an unknown quantity. Okay, and if he were to run as an independent, I wouldn't vote for him because of when he ran against Pat Roberts. I got to know a little bit about him and so forth. Not a bad guy. He doesn't. He to me, he would not support the kind of things that I would want the U.S. Congress, the Senate, to be doing. So, or excuse me, that I would not want had he run and been in the Senate. I wouldn't want him as the governor of Kansas. I would have no problem supporting Chris Kobach as governor of Kansas.
You don't think he's a villain?
Who, Kobach?
Kobach.
No, I think Chris Kobach. You can like him, dislike him in terms of other issues. Most of it is a hostility with regard to immigration. Chris Kobach, I'll say this quickly and then I'll turn it over to others, okay? He is a constitutional scholar. He was an excellent constitutional law instructor at UMKC. I know him personally.
He's brilliant.
He is a brilliant man. You can disagree with him
That all sounds
politically.
good, but this is an election.
You can disagree with him, and in the election, if he
He's
gets the
so
nomination,
likable.
he will win the nomination. He will win the election in Kansas easily.
Terry, are we seeing the decline of the two-party system as we've known it and the increase of independent candidates?
It looks like that. And you forgot, I ran for the Missouri House of Reps and I won with 57%.
I tried to forget that.
Yeah, yeah, and I won
How long ago was that?
57%. And the only thing that's in Kobach's box basement is probably some voter files that he and the president are stealing from citizens of this country. I
partisan,
believe the
man.
guy is grossly just incompetent to be the president as it relates to dealing
not
with
running
the
for
issues.
president.
No,
Governor.
for governor, to deal with the issues that are important to the citizens of that state. All he would want to deal with is abortion and voter rights. Everything else, the guy, he never even talks about.
And we're coming off Sam Brambach, right?
Yeah.
So do the people of Kansas have an appetite for another very controversial figure? And I think that's
he's
why
a retread.
I don't think that at all.
Oh,
I really don't think that
he's
at all.
not a good
Brownback
man.
is
No.
a little bit lukewarm on things. He will never say, I'm going to veto anything. He's never very firm about what he's going to do, and I think there would be a dynamic difference in that Chris Kobach will say, yeah, I'm not doing that. Brownback will not. He will
Chris
not use the
Kobach
word
is not
veto.
going to get any independents or moderates, so let's be
He's
honest.
not going to need them.
Very quickly, Denidri, two or
Yes.
three of the major issues in the Kansas elections next year.
School funding, taxes, those two. A third.
Budget. dealing with the
budget and taxes.
And he is a clone of the current governor.
No, he's not.
I think
Yes, he is.
I don't think he is
will
either.
do the same
Former.
thing.
No, he will be willing to cut, whereas
Well,
the
the former
Brownback
governor.
administration honestly did not make cuts. The
we
budget has
having
grown
predictions
every
here?
single year.
No, we're going to move on
But
to
one.
the next
But
topic,
one.
actually. Kansans won't be the only folks with interesting campaigns to watch next year. The one shaping up as the headliner in the Show Me State is Claire McCaskill's bid for a third term in the U.S. Senate. Her last campaign in 2012 was aided and abetted by her opponent, Republican Todd Akin, who proclaimed victims of what he called legitimate rape rarely get pregnant because their bodies prevent that from happening. Clearly, Mr. Akin did himself and his campaign no good by that utterance. This time around, however, McCaskill is likely to face a much tougher and more articulate opponent, Republican Josh Hawley, the state's Attorney General. At this point, the campaign has barely begun, but we can sense how it's going to shape up. So how does it look to you? First to Steve, then to Jason.
Okay, I'm going to make the prediction now. It's early on and it's bold, okay? If it's Hawley, he's going to win. Claire's not going to win this race. Claire was in deep trouble to, for God's sake, Todd Akin. Now we've had an election where Trump won the state by about 19 points. Okay, Claire has a constituency, but in fairness to Claire, she's not energetic anymore, and she's not going to energize the electorate. Hawley, I don't think he's not an unknown commodity. He ran against Koster, who was supposed to beat him, and Hawley won relatively easily. This guy is a formidable candidate, and he doesn't have the unknown baggage like Todd Akin. So with the support of guys, the money guys like the Koch brothers, he'll probably get support from Steve Bannon and his crazy group, and he's going to get support from Trump. she is in deep, deep trouble. And I'm telling you, and Claire does have some baggage, which is going to come up again. He's going to win this election.
Okay, there's the Steve Marakian, more Republican view. Now the moderate Democrat
he didn't run
view.
against Koster. Koster ran for governor, right?
Right.
This was his first run. He's 37 years old, I believe. Claire is going to every county in Missouri. This is why I like her. She's a Democrat that actually tries to get some votes in red areas, which
she won't
too many
get.
Democrats are doing right now because they're too focused on cities and urban areas where they should be in the rural areas as well. She'll raise a ton of money. I mean, they're talking about $200 million for this race. That's insane.
That's pocket money for the Kochs.
Yeah, but she's already raised. I think she has like $7 million raised already.
I know.
She's got to raise about 30.
Yeah.
He's got a million or so in the bank.
Koster outraised Hawley.
But my point is, I mean, I don't think we should just say Hawley's going to win this race. She's got a lot of pluses. She's been in the game for a while. She's shocked people before. She is pretty moderate, if you ask me. She's 50th, I think, in the Senate, in the middle of the Senate on her voting. So, and she's going to roll up her sleeves and get out there. So I think this is going to be a close race, but I think in the end, she'll win. One, because of the backlash against Republicans. She's not going to.
Not amongst Republicans in Missouri.
I would say not in Missouri.
Koster didn't run against Hawley.
No.
Koster ran for governor. Hawley ran, I've forgotten who he ran against.
You're right.
He's the current Attorney General, though, which most
misspoke.
people don't know because he's only been in office for a year.
Okay.
You're right.
Yeah.
But everyone's heard of Josh Hawley. He's been well vetted by media and opposition research stuff. They're not going to find a Todd Aiken scandal in his background, I don't think.
No, but he has said he criticizes career politicians, people who get into office and then go to the next higher office and then to the next higher office. And that's what he's trying to do. Will that be a cause of concern in his race?
If he wasn't running against Claire McCaskill in Red, Missouri, maybe. But he's running against Claire McCaskill, who probably, by all rights, should have lost 6 years ago, 5 years ago.
It's a different time, though, now. We have Donald Trump in office.
It's redder. Missouri keeps
It's better
getting
in Missouri,
redder.
though. You're right.
Well, part of the problem is what Jason said. In Claire's first campaign, I did the GOTV train every single county. They all came to Kansas City. We trained them, and they went out. In the last few election cycles, they didn't do the same thing. They did not try to go to some of those smaller counties and chip off some of those votes.
She's doing town hall meetings.
She's doing town hall meetings in every single county in the state of Missouri, which is different for a Democratic candidate because they spend a ton of money on television.
That's why we could lose an election.
There was an interesting story in the Kansas City Star this Thursday morning that McCaskill was in some trouble because she was seen at a meeting in the White House seated next to the president. Why would that be a reason for her to be in trouble with Democratic voters?
It's ridiculous, honestly.
No, it's not. I'll tell you why.
I think that she gets independence. I mean, if she's actually reaching across the aisle and working with Republicans, that helps her in Missouri.
It's not. The problem, and I saw that exact thing. Trump orchestrated that beautifully. He's targeting her, and what he's saying to Claire and putting her right out there is, okay, you better vote for my tax reform package or you're toast. Claire is going to have a real problem. If she doesn't vote for it, she's going to lose big in Missouri.
All right, I'm going to have a real problem if we don't move on. And so we head to the soapbox for Roast and Toast, where the Ruckheads have 30 seconds each to optimize or criticize people and events in the news. And we start with Denidre.
I want to give my toast to Sergeant LaDavid Johnson, Staff Sergeant Brian Black, Staff Sergeant Jeremiah Johnson, and Staff Sergeant Dustin Wright. These 4 men were killed. They are soldiers, and I actually want to give a little bit of my toast is to them. I am so grateful for their lives and their service and their sacrifice, but I also have a roast for Congresswoman Stupid Hat. It infuriates me that when this is over, we're going to know her name and not theirs. So I want to give a toast to them and hope that we can remember their names and not that crazy hat woman.
The awesome Steve Marakian.
I'm calling out Hillary Clinton and Hanoi Jane Fonda, only 2 of Hollywood's many faux feminists, for their complicity in concealing serial sex offender Harvey Weinstein because of his influence and financial support for Democrats and causes and candidates. While feigning ignorance of Weinstein's gross violation of women's rights, Hillary still won't even admit that her husband was the molester-in-chief. So thanks, Hillary and Jane, for exposing yourselves as frauds and hypocrites. Your angst about the Republican war on women was never about women's rights. It was simply a platform to attack your political opponents.
All right, Jason.
I was going to roast and toast a lot of different things, but I realized I'm wearing a blue and red tie today, and I'm a Missouri fan through and through. I went to law school at Mizzou, but I'd have to toast the universities for actually getting together and playing each other again this weekend. Mizzou versus KU basketball. Sprint Center sold out in less than 5 minutes. It's a good thing for Kansas City, for everything around us. I'm excited to see it, and kudos to the people at the universities for making the exhibition game happen. Yeah. And even a Mizzou fan can rock crimson and blue sometimes.
All right, Terry.
You know, you talked about the soldiers earlier. I happen to know the Congresswoman. She wears hats and boots all the time. But if you look at her legislative record, she is a dynamite representative. I'm glad she said something about our buffoon of a president, Donald Trump, talking so rudely to a person that lost someone at war. It was just grotesque. It was terrible that he said, you know what you were signing up for. Apparently, he didn't know what he was signing up for as president. That's why he's grossly incompetent.
And he's denied saying it. And finally, here is a toast to U.S. Senator John Kennedy. Yes, there is another senator named John Kennedy. He's a Republican from Louisiana. Reacting to all the calls for gun control, Senator Kennedy said, I think criminals obey gun laws like politicians keep promises. And that is Ruckus for this week. We are back next Thursday at 7. Now for the Ruckettes and the crew, Mike Shannon saying thanks very much for watching. Thanks to all of you for taking part. Good panel and good night.
Production funding for Ruckus has been provided by gifts from Dave and Jamie Cummings, the Hartwig family, Hush Blackwell, Barbara and Peter Gattermeyer, and by viewers like you. Thank you.